This episode of Mission Log is brought to you by Eagle Moss and the official Star Trek Discovery Starships collection. Reserve the USS Shinju today for only $9.95 by visiting eaglemoss.com/discovery starships.
Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. Episode 254, Lower Decks.
Welcome into Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I'm Ken Ray.
And I'm John Champion. Each week on Mission Log, we watch an episode of Star Trek, taking it apart for messages, morals, and meanings, and seeing whether the whole thing holds up today.
This week, Lower Decks, the one where the writers realize there are more than 7 people on this ship of over 1,000 people. It's good to see some characters that'll really grow into being part of the crew we know and love. Oops, not so fast, Cito. Or anyone else, for that matter. John's got trivia coming up in just a moment, but first, how about a few words from our friends at Eagle Moss and the official Star Trek Discovery, that's right, I said Discovery Starships collection. Of course, you've heard me and Ken talk about our love for the teeny tiny starships that are made by Eagle Moss, the officially authorized collection from CBS Studios. Well, this collection is full of brand new ships and ship concepts from the designs of CBS's Star Trek Discovery, and each one has gone through extensive reference study and has been reproduced under the strict supervision of Star Trek expert Ben Robinson for accuracy and detail. Now, what's very cool is, while John mentioned the teeny tiny starships earlier, I don't want to break your heart. These things aren't life-size.
The what?
They're not 1-to-1. But,
okay.
But they are bigger than the teeny tiny starships. They're about 8 inches from tip to tail. The Shenzhou, sadly, it was a short-lived ship. Oh, spoiler. Sorry. You get to see a lot more of it than you got to see on Discovery, is the point that I'm making. At least the Discovery that we've seen so far. But who knows? It's a weird and wacky thing, this business we call sci-fi. We might get to see more of it later. We might not. I know nothing about what's coming. Anyway, well, I do know about this one thing that could be coming to you. The detail work that they do on it is absolutely incredible. You've seen the detail on the smaller ones. Imagine how much more detail they could give you when they blow it up just a tiny bit. Blowing up the ship not included. Each ship also comes with a display base, plus a collector's magazine that tells you all about both the design of the ship, in this world in which we live, and then a bunch of in-universe stuff that'll tell you more about the ship. Certainly than you got to see on Discovery.
And a very important note. There are limited quantities of these ships coming in early 2018. So now is the time to guarantee your subscription by reserving your first ship, that would be the USS Shinju NCC 1227, for only $9.95 with free shipping. Now, you'll actually get the ship on or before January 31st, 2018.
And I know what you're saying. You're saying, well, that's kind of a wait. Depending on when you're listening to this. But right now, as we record it, you might be saying that's kind of a wait. Well, here's the thing, though. New models then ship monthly after that. And they'll be delivered directly to your door. So, yeah, you're having to wait for the first one. But once you get the first one, then it's just bam, 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 like once a month, which is impressive. Subscribers also enjoy an exclusive 20% discount on every starship in the series, along with the free shipping that John mentioned a moment ago. Of course, you can cancel your subscription at any time, but then it's just bam. And you remember how good bam, bam, bam sounded. Mm-hmm. So, you can stop at one bam if you want to. But then there's so much less Discovery.
All right. So for details on the entire collection and to reserve your place among the first to subscribe, visit eaglemoss.com/discovery starships. That address again, eaglemoss.com/discovery starships. And once again, we do thank Eagle Moss for sponsoring Mission Log.
John really, honestly, truly does have trivia coming up in just a moment. But first, I want to let you know how to get in touch with us. Mission Log Pod is the address to find us on Facebook, Skype, and Twitter. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, we would love to hear your voice. 323-522-5641 is the phone number to call. 323-522-5641. Our email address is missionlog@roddenberry.com. Our show website, including discovered documents, is at missionlogpodcast.com. And hey, by the way, you can leave comments there too. And please do remember, we may use your comments on an upcoming episode of Mission Log. And with that, we turn it over to the Trivia Master. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, we present to you John Champion.
Why, thank you for that, Ken. Just a little bit of trivia on today's show, Lower Decks. The story is by Ron Wilkerson and Jean-Louise Matthias. Now, we've seen this pairing before on Next Gen. They provided the stories for Imaginary Friend, Schisms, and Lessons. But most of the script work on this episode was actually handed over to Renee Echeverria, since they were under a very tight deadline to finish this episode. So the real trick was to find the right balance between how much of the main cast would be featured and how much of the guest cast would be featured instead. Jerry Taylor and Michael Piller felt that it was best to break the mold here and primarily focus on the guests. And worth noting that this episode was inspired by Upstairs, Downstairs, originally a series that ran 1971 to 1975 in Britain, revived, I believe, in 2010. Ken, did you ever watch any of Upstairs, Downstairs? You know the premise of that show?
I do. It was, and I will tell you, I started watching it because I liked Downton Abbey so much.
Oh,
and then Downton Abbey was no longer available to us because, you know, it ran its course. And I watched the first episode of Upstairs, Downstairs, and that was plenty.
Oh, really? That's all you got through? Okay.
I remember hearing wonderful things about it when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But man, I'm not sure. Of course, we'll be doing the Downton Abbey, not the Downton Abbey podcast, because there are a million of those. We'll be doing the Upstairs, Downstairs podcast in 2073.
Yeah, we will. Very brief introduction to that show for those who are not familiar with it. The idea is that you follow a family who are living in Edwardian England. So I believe it's like 1903, or 1908 to about 1930. So across the 5 seasons, it's going to be a different time period. And then you have the story of the people who are the family living upstairs, but then also their servants who are living downstairs. And then you sort of see history unfold through the eyes of these different characters. So that was the premise there, to get a taste.
Yeah, also known as Downton Abbey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there you go.
But earlier and with smaller stars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Today's episode was directed by Gabrielle Beaumont, and we mentioned before that she was the first woman to have a directorial position on Star Trek. Most recently, we saw her work on Face of the Enemy, but we met her way back in Season 3 with Booby Trap.
Booby Trap?
Yeah, Booby Trap was the episode that we talked about with her. Yeah, first episode. Mm-hmm. She
directed the episode Booby Trap.
Yep. For those who were wondering, Gabrielle Beaumont directed Booby Trap. Booby Trap was directed by Gabrielle Beaumont. Oh, and for those of you playing at home with the Mission Log inside jokes, also worth mentioning that she directed Disaster.
I don't remember the joke for that.
You don't?
No.
And every time I say disaster, you say, Disaster!
Do I really?
Yeah.
I thought I only did that with the Ultimate Computer.
Oh, no. Disaster is...
yeah. Wow. Yeah. We've been doing this show a while, man.
We have. All right, it's true. You may have been wondering about Barclay. Yes, Reg Barclay was considered for this episode, but it was felt that he was already too known as a recurring guest star on the show. Also worth mentioning that this episode premiered in February of 1994. Only a few months earlier, in November, Paramount had announced plans for Star Trek Voyager debuting in January 1995. So a lot of viewers assumed that some of the new characters we were meeting here would either go on to be part of the Voyager crew or at least turn up at some point on Deep Space Nine. Hey, welcome back to the Shuttle Curie again, last seen in Parallels. And speaking of returning props, well, We're also seeing the return of some of those Season 1 uniforms. Yes, those one-piece outfits that the cast hated. You would see those in the background very often on non-featured characters, but here they're just all over the place. You may be asking yourself, who is Niels Diaz? Well, there's a real one who happens to be Rene Echeverria's godfather. He was a nuclear engineering professor in Florida, so his name was immortalized as an engineering genius in this episode of Star Trek. Hey, here's a little thing that I never really noticed stuff like this, but did you happen to see, Ken, or maybe some of our listeners did, the wooden wedge stuck under the chair at the op station where JAXA is sitting in Act 1? So usually stuff like this is hidden really well. Like you have to look way off in a corner to see like the shadow from a boom mic. And sometimes in the HD versions, it's taken out entirely. Or, it's off screen pretty quickly, like if the camera moves out of the way. Well, this is just dead center, and it sits on screen for a really long time during some dialogue. So I kind of couldn't take my eyes off of that.
I did not notice that. No, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's just right there. And let's see, we have a new game featured in 10 Forward. It's called Terrace, and the version that we see here was first published in 1991. Interesting backstory, though. The original game was created in the 50s, but it just wasn't working. The rules didn't make sense. So the designer sold the idea for $100 in 1988. Buzz Seiler redeveloped it, and that new version ended up winning awards and has gone in and out of publication in different versions ever since. Now let's talk about our guest stars. We welcome back Patty Yasutake as Nurse Ogawa. Jarrett Dahl is played by Don Riley. This is his only Star Trek appearance, and he has a pretty extensive career as a stage actor. Most of his TV work is from the late 80s into the early 2000s. Ben, the waiter, is played by Bruce Beatty. This is also a one-time Trek appearance for Bruce, but he's a pretty busy actor with multiple TV guest roles and also some feature films under his belt, like Falling Down, Dope, and Straight Outta Compton. Torek, the Vulcan, is played by Alexander Enberg. We got a quick glimpse of him in Time's Arrow as a reporter, but here he is with a featured role, and he will be back as a Vulcan, though a different Vulcan, many times on Voyager and as a voice in the Star Trek video games. So why all the Trek connection? Well, his mother is none other than Jerry Taylor. In addition to Star Trek, Alexander has shown up in movies like Pump Up the Volume and the TV movie that was one of Angelina Jolie's breakout roles, Gia. Sam Lavelle is played by Dan Gauthier. He got his start in TV guest roles, which led to recurring spots on some prominent shows like Ellen, Beverly Hills 90210, and Melrose Place, and he has also spent a good deal of time working in soap operas. And finally, Shannon Phil returns as Ensign Sito JAXA. We first met her and her character in The First Duty. Hope you all remember that story because it plays a little bit of a role in this episode too. Shannon has only a short resume of on-screen acting roles, with the most recent credits from 1995. She's from Texas, but moved to California early and to attend school in California, and has most recently worked as a clinical social worker.
Sadly, today, we say goodbye to a favorite next-gen character. I am, of course, referring to Ben.
Prologue. Riker and Troy are just so over it with doing crew evaluations. So let's not spend any more time on them. Let's meet the people who are really worried about those evaluations. There's Nurse Ogawa, we know her. A Vulcan, Tarek, we don't know him. There's also Sam Lavelle and Sito JAXA and their waiter Ben, who lets them know that they are both up for the same job. Act 1. In a battle simulation on the bridge headed by Commander Riker, Ensign Sito is at tactical while Ensign Lavelle is at the helm. They're not bad, but a little green. Just then Picard comes in with a real mission, something important, something secret. It's near the Cardassian border, which leaves the junior officers still on the bridge with some very incomplete information to gossip about. In engineering, Torek is calculating some cutting-edge warp field theories which impress Geordi, but they're untested and not ready to be implemented just yet. Torek is maybe just a little too eager, and Geordi's interested, but has other things to do. Jumping over to sickbay, Nurse Ogawa is getting the kind of news the others are anxious about. Promotion? Oh yeah, totally in the bag, so says Dr. Crusher, so don't look here for more dramatic tension. There is a thing, though, with Nurse Ogawa, soon to be Lieutenant Ogawa, wondering about her boyfriend being really busy lately, but having to break a date. Crusher says it's nothing. He's just really busy. I repeat, do not look here for more dramatic tension in this episode. Later, Ensign Sito is expressing her concerns to Lieutenant Worf in 10 Forward. She's feeling like she's in over her head. Working at Ops was stressful, and she doesn't understand why she's up for the position along with Lavelle. She's a security officer, after all. Worf tells her that he recommended her for the position. Meanwhile, Lavelle is stressing too. Ben says, look, you need to think about Riker, his superior, as a person, not a position. Connect with him personally. He likes jazz, poker. He's from Canada. Perfect. Lavelle approaches Riker at the bar and makes some small talk about his grandfather being from Canada, at which point Riker reminds him that he's from Alaska. Womp womp. Arriving in the Argaea system, really close to Cardassian space, Worf detects a small escape pod from the bridge. It's super far away, well inside Cardassian space, which leaves them with a challenge to get the thing out. Act 2. The tech will be teched. Data determines that boosting the transporter confinement beam might be enough to get the passenger of that escape pod beamed aboard. Lavelle is right next to him on the bridge as all this goes down, and when the order is relayed to engineering, it's Geordi and Torek who do the work. The call is then placed to the transporter room, and that passenger will be beamed right into sickbay, at which point Beverly tells Nurse Ogawa to beat it. Oh, and who's minding the front door? Well, it's JAXA, of course, under orders to allow only senior staff in that room. So all 4 of the junior officers have a tiny piece of the puzzle about this mission. Picard visits sickbay for a moment to see how their mystery guest is doing, and on the way out, he sees Ensign Sito. Hey, come with me. And she just seems kind of excited that the captain himself wants to talk to her about something. He asks if she's a pilot, and yes, she is. Well, her excitement wears off pretty quickly because once in his ready room, Picard lays into the ensign with the real reason for this meeting. She was part of that kerfuffle a few years ago at the Academy when a cadet was killed during an illegal flight maneuver. Oh yeah, the one with Wesley, when they all tried to cover up what happened. Picard is not happy about how all that went down, not happy that she tried to cover up the truth, and as a matter of fact, he's not too thrilled with the idea that she's serving on the Enterprise for the past 7 months. Dismissed. Act 3. Geordi has Tarek carrying out some very unconventional tests on one of the shuttlecraft, specifically firing a phaser rifle at it. He says it's to test hull integrity, but Tarek comments that the blasts he's making are consistent with what it would look like if the shuttle had been fired upon by an attacker. Weird, right? In sickbay, Dr. Crusher tells Nurse Ogawa to prepare for surgery. Their patient is badly injured, and by the way, you're not to tell anyone about this. The patient, that mystery guest, is a Cardassian. Much later, the junior officers and the senior officers are in their own separate poker games. The junior officers are speculating about all the weird stuff going on lately, no one revealing what they actually know. The seniors are talking about the juniors, who's qualified for what. There's bluffing, there are smug challenges, there's a lot of questioning what the others are doing. And that's just the professional stuff, not to mention the poker hand. When the games break up, Geordi stops by the junior officers to have Tarek come help him out in engineering. Surprise to Tarek, since he was just trying to figure out why it seems like Geordi doesn't like it when Tarek points out all the ways they could be improving things in their department. Ben steps out and right into the senior officer's poker game, where he also seems right at home. Act 4. Morning time, and Ensign Sito is in one of Worf's Klingon Tai Chi or Mokbara classes. When it's over, he pulls her aside and says he'd like to move her into an advanced class, but she'll need to pass the Giktao first. She'll be blindfolded and have to rely on anticipating Worf's attacks. She'll have to let go of her conscious self and act on instinct. But with the blindfold on, how can I see anything? How am I supposed to fight? Your eyes can deceive you. Don't trust them. And then Worf pretty much wins at everything. So unlike Luke Skywalker, Incencito realizes that this is an unfair test and takes off the blindfold. That, Worf says, means she just won the challenge, by realizing she needed to stand up when she was being unfairly tested. Also, there is no Giktao. Metaphor much? That was the inspiration she needed to confront Picard one more time. She can't change what happened in the past, but she's done exemplary work now. If he doesn't want her on his ship, then she requests a transfer. Hold on. Picard asked for her to be assigned to the Enterprise. It's his way of helping her find redemption for a huge mistake. So now, it's not about the ops position, but Sito will report to the senior officers for an assignment to a dangerous mission. The Cardassian they have on board is a spy for the Federation. He's brought them intelligence, and now he needs to return to Cardassian space. The plan is to have a stolen shuttle, the one they were giving battle damage earlier, and a Bajoran prisoner, that would be her, to sneak past the border guards. Once on the other side, Sito would go into an escape pod and the Enterprise would pick her up. Picard's not ordering her, but Sito volunteers for the mission. She's not to discuss it with anyone. A stop by Dr. Crusher and Sito herself is given some battle damage. It's just cosmetic, though, enough to make it look like she's been mistreated by the Cardassian captor. Farewell to Worf, and off they go in the shuttle. Act 5. With some time in the shuttle, Sito asks Joret Dahl why he's doing this. He's seen the Cardassian military devolve, he says, from an institution of protection and security to one of conquest. He's tired of fighting and thinks what his people need is peace. Before long, the patrol intercepts the shuttle. Sito knows her part, and she allows herself to be handcuffed to look like she's Joret's prisoner. Back on board the Enterprise, Tarek, Ogawa, and Lavelle are in 10 forward trying to put the pieces together. They assume Sito was on the shuttle that left, and the shuttle was heading toward Cardassian space. They're friends, and they each know some little details, but they're also officers who are sworn to secrecy. Mood on the bridge is tense. The escape pod is more than 30 hours past due for their rendezvous, and there's no sign of it or sign of life. A probe is launched in an effort to cover more area, and soon after, debris is spotted which is consistent with that of a Federation escape pod. Sometime later, a Cardassian report is intercepted stating that a pod containing an escaped Bajoran prisoner was destroyed. This leaves Captain Picard with the rather solemn duty of reporting Sito's death to the crew, killed in the line of duty. Later in 10 forward, Tarek, Ogawa, and Lavelle are together again, but with one empty seat at the table. Lavelle got his promotion, but he's wondering if he only did because Sito is gone. His friends remind him that they are proud of him, and that the best thing he can do to honor her is to do a great job in his new position. Worf is contemplative and alone, until Ben pops up and gently nudges him to join the others at their table. He was, after all, Sito's friend too. The end.
Well done, sir.
Thank you.
No problem at all. Vulcan on Bajoran history in one word. Meow. What the heck? I mean, he's like, yeah. What did Sito say? She's like, oh yeah, we have people like, something big is going to happen. We have people who like chant for us for 24 hours. It's just a constant chant. And the Vulcan's like, yeah, and look how that's worked out for your planet.
Well, this Vulcan, Tarek, he's got a lot of little meow in him anyway. I mean, he's like, why don't you go to your own room, Lavelle? He's just ready.
Yeah, I see where the Vulcans get their, get one of their reputations anyway. if he's emblematic. Of course, he is green. Hey, it's a Vulcan joke. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're not really green. There's a green tinge and green blood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well done. Yeah. Hey, can we talk about something really important that is just a quick line that is glossed over really fast? Incencito is there with Worf and 10-4 talking about how hard it was being at Ops, and one of those jobs she had to use the onboard sensors to find a lost puppy. There's a lost puppy on board the Enterprise, Ken.
I understand. Kind of makes you think they're real, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. It's also a little weird to me that she was able to use the sensors to find a lost puppy, but, you know, how Worf or anybody else evades capture is just, take off the comm badge.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, she can find a puppy. Couldn't find a Klingon. Mm-hmm. They couldn't find a Klingon with the sensors if they needed to or wanted to. Yeah. Or was it Geordi, I guess, who would actually take... Well, okay, in fairness, if there was only one puppy that had been manufactured by the ship at the time, then it should be easy to find. When Geordi took off his comm badge, then they have to set the sensors for find a human.
No, look, and as far as I know, there's puppies everywhere, whether they're real or replicated. They're just the ship is crawling with these puppies. Okay,
that'd be
so
great.
To find a lost one, I think, is a big deal.
It'd be fantastic, wouldn't it? Just like one episode, they're just puppies running through, and nobody acknowledges them. Nobody even mentions them. Mm-hmm. Just like a puppy. It's like a wooden wedge laying on screen, except
right
in puppy form.
Yes, yeah, I like it. Picard really lays into Incencito, and he says, you should have been expelled for what you did. He doesn't even want her on the Enterprise. Oh, but Wesley's cool. We're cool with Wesley. Like, I practically had to beat it out of him to tell the truth, but we're fine with Wesley.
Yeah.
But you, ma'am.
We know Wesley.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I mean, if there's one thing we've learned about the crew of the Enterprise has the crew of the Enterprise's back.
Right? Always, no matter what.
You stole the ship, but you are Data, so it's fine. Well, you did get a guy killed, but you are Wesley, so it's okay. Oh, and you lied about it too, but you're Wesley.
But you're still Wesley. You're our Wesley.
Exactly.
Yeah. Man, and poor Ben, because, look, 24th century civilian clothing, still a challenge. Still a challenge. I really like that we have a little detail about a civilian on board, though. We should have had more of that all along, I feel. Yeah. Because, as you mentioned in the intro today, you've got 1,000 people, more than 1,000 people on board. We really see 7, maybe if you include Lieutenant Junior J, like 8 each week. And even they're walking through corridors, there's nobody there. And I get it, that's a constraint of the budget to make a weekly TV show. Mm-hmm. But how cool would it be if we had more run-in? Like, there's the guy in the Blockbuster uniform, the khaki pants and the red shirt. We had that guy once.
Yeah. Wow. What a difference he made.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Mm-hmm. What a difference. Sorry. Somebody right now is laughing their head off, and they know exactly why. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry to put that earworm in your head, too. But wow, what a difference.
Look it up.
Yeah. I will say, it is wonderful. It is wonderful to see a character like Ben get some more screen time. I mean, they're always saying hi to him. He's always good for a laugh. Who is Ben? You remember Roy from The Simpsons? Do you remember Roy from The Simpsons?
No.
He was the character. He was a great character. He was the character that they added during the episode where Itchy and Scratchy added Poochie. Okay, so Itchy and Scratchy, the ratings were failing, and so they said, we're going to add Poochie. And Lisa says, oh, this is just one of those cheap things they do, either add like a new character or a baby or something like that. And then Roy wanders in and he's like, hey, Mrs. S. And it turns out Roy's been living in the room above their garage. Supposedly for all 8 seasons, I think, at the time that we had seen The Simpsons at that point.
Nice.
Yeah, Ben is Roy is Ben. By the way, both Poochie and Roy were gone by the end of the episode.
Yeah.
So that may be a Ben thing, although I do actually suspect that Ben might also be the devil.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, because he's tempting Deanna with dessert. Tempting. Mm-hmm. He's stirring up trouble between Cito and Lavelle, because that was really terrible, actually. Did you hear what they were talking about? Yeah, I did, but I don't think you're going to like it. You two are in competition for the same job and may end up hating each other forever.
Mm-hmm.
Also, he is seemingly familiar to everybody, even though nobody has ever seen him before.
I love it.
I'm saying there's like Joss Whedon stuff going on here.
I don't think he's evil. See, when you mentioned it, when you put it in the context you did, I was thinking like a Cousin Oliver type. I was also thinking about like a Ted McGinley.
Ted McGinley? You know? What about Ted McGinley?
You just, you know, if you're having trouble with the show, you just work in a Ted McGinley, and then you know pretty much you're going to be off in about 6 more episodes.
So you're telling me then that we are actually going to see Ben again?
Oh, God, I wish.
Because you see, that's the thing. That's the difference. You say what you want to about Cousin Oliver. He got more than one shot.
Yeah, okay, true. Yeah.
Say what you want about Ted McGinley. All 6 episodes, he's part of it.
But then the show's gone.
I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Luckily, Ben was not played by Ted McGinley, which means we have so much more next gen.
Next gen with Ben.
Yeah. Too soon?
Yeah, too soon. I love Geordi making up the reason why Tarek is firing at the shuttle, because I just kept thinking, let's put that in the real world for a moment. Just, you know, it's you know, France. You're on the front lines, 1944, and there's a general telling a soldier, just unload your weapon all over that Jeep. It's how we test it out in the field. Exactly. That's what we do.
Yeah. Whose idea was it to involve the purely logical Vulcan and the completely illogical, you know, whatever? I mean, that was just, it was so bad. Unless he's laughing. If he's a laughing Vulcan, just he's up for any level of crazy you're looking for. But yeah, just the whole like, oh, we're testing the hull. We're like, really? Yeah. Really? Yeah. Because like a 4-year-old Vulcan would know that this is highly illogical.
So you're saying they should have given Tarek to Data, maybe. Make that his problem.
Well, it just get somebody else to help out with this. I mean, I couldn't help noticing how little Lieutenant Junior J was doing here. By the way, really, just fantastic. Okay. Fantastic, by the way. It's like so there's Tracy. And she's like, so what's next week's episode about? And somebody says, oh, we're going to get to know the characters that we never talked to. And she's like, yes!
Thank goodness.
And they're like, oh, about that.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah. You know,
it hurts.
She got paid. I'm sure she got paid. But wow. You know, she must have been like, yeah, no, it's great. They finally talked to all the characters we never talked to. And her mom's like, oh, honey, this is good. And she's like, you'd think so, wouldn't you, Mom? I can see where you'd think that. And don't gather everybody around.
Yeah. Hey, there's a great little production detail that I noticed that I really, really liked during the poker games, because you had the 2 concurrent scenes. They were jumping back and forth between the junior officers and then the senior officers.
Yeah.
The background noise. So obviously, if you've seen any clips of the show without any of the sound effects, it's just a very bare, empty room. That's the sort of ambient noise that you have, right? So they have to add in these layers of noise under every single scene. And it's not just the obvious stuff like the beeping and scanners and stuff on the bridge, but just in the corridors, in somebody's room, you have like a low hum, like engines and air conditioning and all that stuff happening around them. And it's a different background noise between the 2 poker games. Kind of give you a little audible clue as to which game you're in when they just start with like a close-up of the chips or a close-up of the cards or something like that. And I did note is a little louder and a little higher pitched for the junior officers. I'm thinking that they have the rooms that are noisier than the senior officers.
They're below decks, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Fun fact, by the way, a lot of people don't know this. I do the same thing for this show. When you hear like an airplane like flying over in the background or like a helicopter maybe or a train in the distance, because, you know, everybody loves the sound of a train in the distance, John.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks it's true.
Just add those in.
Yeah, add a little. It adds a little realism, because otherwise, you know, perfectly antiseptic, like totally quiet rooms that we record in. I do that for the people.
I loved it when you added in the one that was the beeping of the smoke detector where the battery was dying. That was inspired.
That was like a bit. That went on for a while. Yeah, people were crazy about that one. I think crazy is probably the word for that.
Yeah. Hey, here's an interesting note. Picard violated a treaty by launching a probe into Cardassian space.
But he's Picard.
Yeah, okay. We know him. We know Picard. So that's okay.
Right.
Yeah. I was just thinking about the Picard who was, really tearing into Nikolai not too long ago about how dare you violate something as prime as, say, the Prime Directive by saving these people. And now this week, we have one crew member who's missing, and she's really important to us.
Yeah.
How about I violate a treaty to get her back?
Okay, in fairness, Nikolai violated the Prime Directive. Picard is violating a subsequent directive.
Just a treaty. It's just a treaty with people who could destroy us.
Right, it's just a thin membrane separating us from all-out war. But, it's just going to poke a little hole in the membrane.
Just a probe-sized hole.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll be fine.
Have we ever seen the captain announce a death over the PA system before? I mean, in Next Gen.
Only on April Fool's Day.
Oh, okay. Oh, God.
Sorry.
No, please, no.
No.
And interesting, he's basing it on reports. I feel like if it had been another crew member, would there have been way more attempts at confirming that before calling the death? And I know that's not what this episode is about. Had it been another episode and had, say, Data been missing for 30 hours or 48 hours or 72 hours, then we're just going to keep going until the end of the episode until we get him back.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about though the reality's recurring characters, right? I mean, let us not forget that Captain Geordi's mom, and her whole crew were just like gone, and Starfleet was like, it's a whole ship. It's so but it's a whole week. Yeah, all right. Well, we'll look for 6 days, but then we're then we're good.
Right. By the way, there was some debate during production on this episode about whether or not Jaxa was really dead and how definitive they would make that. So you kind of have two instances. You have the discovery of the debris, then you have the voiceover of Picard saying, we intercepted Cardassian reports that said that a Bajoran prisoner was killed. Michael Piller, in particular, wanted to bring her back and had planned to introduce a plot line in Deep Space Nine where it would have been revealed that she was still alive. But Jerry Taylor was the one who wanted to make this much more definitive to drive home the drama on the episode.
Interesting. Now, you say Deep Space Nine.
Oh, hey, just stick around. Stick with me for another, 3 months or so. Things will get interesting.
Ben has been so central to this show. Remember that time Riker was completely broken up about the relationship between Worf and Troy? Come to think of it, remember the relationship between Worf and Troy? Anyway, Ben was there.
I hope I'm not giving too much away here. I don't know that there's a whole lot to talk about with this episode.
Yeah, I agree. There are things happening.
Yes.
But it's all pretty much on the surface.
Yeah.
Even though they're sneaking around with the plot, pretty much the character stuff is all right there on the surface.
Yeah. So, when we go into, to try to do, the sort of the deeper dive thing, there was a thing that happened very early in the episode that I was not a fan of. I didn't like the I didn't like the fact that Cito basically had to make Lavelle feel better about the fact that she's being considered for a position ahead of him, right? Because she's sitting at ops and she's like, "Hey, things went really great," and he's like, "I don't guess so, because if things had gone good, I'd be sitting where you are." And it's like, "Oh, because you automatically deserve it." Yeah, you're right, Lavelle. Way to go. The thing is, though, if this is going to be a male-female dynamic, it's really a no-win scenario. So I wish there was a good name for a no-win scenario.
Yeah.
But it really is kind of like a no-win for the writers. I mean, a woman having to make a man feel better is, sexist. Like, that's her job to make the man feel better. But then if the man ends up having to make the woman feel better, it's condescending. Oh, I'm sorry. That means talking down to people, John.
That's my favorite joke.
I love that joke. I know. Every time. Yeah. That's one of my favorites. What's my other one? What's my other favorite joke? It'll come to me. I'll tell you later. Anyway.
My other one I can't say on air. But
well, I look forward to hearing that later then. So I guess what I'm saying is maybe they should have had like a well-trusted actor or character. Maybe have Ben do this or something. But even then, it's just, I mean, there's not, I don't want to say there's no there, here, or here, there. That's a tiny little thing that like sort of bothered me. And then I'm like, and otherwise I'm ready to jump to the like conclusion, which is not to say we should stop. I'm just saying it's like, no. There's not, this is not a Nikolai situation. This is not, one of those things where like, should Data tell his robot mom she's a robot?
Right.
It's sort of like, okay, so that's happening. Okay, no, that's happening. And we're done. Okay.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, maybe, honestly, there's just a rewrite and us having, perfect 2020 hindsight on this. Not. Maybe there's just a little rewrite to do where you can still set it up the same way. Cito gets to take ops, and Lavelle feels a little weird about that. And then what does she have to say? She just has to say, hey, look, we're both qualified. I'm sitting here now.
Right.
You'll probably sit here next shift.
Right.
Chill.
Even you're saying it like that, I'm still like, this really almost probably wasn't even worth bringing up. It was like while I was watching it, I was like, oh, that's kind of icky. And then it was over.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right. Hey, I remember my other favorite joke, by the way.
Okay. Yeah.
So, knock, knock.
Who's there?
To
who?
To whom? Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah, I like that one. Yeah. It's especially good when you can actually deliver the joke.
Yeah. That's nice.
Yeah.
It's nicely done. Okay, look, since you started out with something that you did not like, that you just found eye roll worthy.
It's not even that big a deal, though. That's the thing.
I'm going to give you something that to me is a bigger deal.
Okay.
And that's the whole subplot with Nursagawa.
No.
So, yeah, we start out with the fact that they're all concerned about their promotions, which is fine, which is great. I think we can all relate to that. And then you kind of undermine that by having her go to Dr. Crusher, who just must be the coolest out of all the senior staff, because she's like, oh, yeah, you don't have to wait. We're done. You're going to be a lieutenant. Okay, cool. See you. But then it turns into this thing about her boyfriend. And then by the end of the episode, which is only occurring over the course of like a day or two, they're engaged. And it played so false to me and so uninteresting. And it also, I'm sitting here looking at this character. Nursagawa has been around for a while in the series, even though she's not a super prominent role. And I looked up Patty Yasutake when this was shot. I want to say that she was like in her late 30s when this episode was filmed. And I kept thinking, this is a conversation for like a 14-year-old. Oh, well, my boyfriend was busy, so I feel bad about that, and I need to talk to a mother figure about it. And I'm like,
she didn't need to talk to her. No, she didn't even need to talk to her. There's I was going to talk about this later in the episode, but I mean, as far as the recap thing, but I want to say this is like the second or third time that Beverly has sort of inserted herself into Ogawa's personal life.
Sure, yeah.
Because like whoever is writing these scenes seems to be thinking, what do women talk about? Oh, I know, men. I mean, that really seems to be, it's like, these are two medical professionals. These are two grown women. And the only thing they can talk about is, so, you see anybody? And it's like, yeah.
It just, I hated that scene, and then I hated that it had a conclusion.
Right.
It's like, well, we better wrap this up with a bow. Okay, they're engaged now.
Well, that's fine. Well, I mean, that's fine. I mean, if that's all you're going to give her as far as your subplot, I mean, she could actually. It's sort of. I would have been better if they hadn't, like, had anything for that first scene. And then, like, later in the episode, it, like, Beverly could be like, so how you doing? And a gal could be like, well, I'm wrecked because, like, one of my best friends is maybe dead now. And also, we sent her away with a Cardassian.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Let's not do that. Let's give her a fake boyfriend. Instead.
It was really... look, this is a tough thing about where we are in Next Gen, because we've had so much. We're approaching the end of the entire series. And not only that, but are we I think we're at the halfway point for the season.
I think we're probably further 7. Than that.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
And you just feel like this is not the time to be inventing business for the characters. And when I say business, just sort of random little character things that help you round out a character. We're past that. We don't need that here. And it just, all of it irritated me to no end with that character in particular.
I'm really not kidding, though. This seems to be the default position for Ogawa, between Beverly and Ogawa, and I don't know why that is. Because
I know, but here's the thing. That was okay. That was okay a while ago.
No, it wasn't okay.
Well, not even okay. No. I take that back. It wasn't okay in the sense that this is an okay scene. But I had an easier time with that being a thing that they buried into a character interaction a year or two ago than in this. This is the time for these characters in this episode to have center stage. And if all the best that we can do for this character who has been around is just a rehash of the same kind of conversation that she had with Beverly a year or two ago, that's lazy and horrible. I'm sorry.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah. Here's another kind of weird thing. Everybody's sneaking around and playing games with each other. It doesn't feel so much like the hunt to promote the best officers. It felt like the senior officers just playing a game with their underlings. Like, we're going to mess around with them and be sneaky. Like, everything is a test. Everything. Yeah. Really? Starfleet is still this dramatic about everything. I mean, they're dramatic about, like, not announcing who's beaming up and, opening a door and not expecting to see that person.
Right.
But I guess on the good end of it, this episode is a pretty good example of why conspiracy theories fall apart upon examination. Like, as soon as more than 2 people know about something, the whole thing starts to unravel. And here you've got 4 people, all with a little piece of the story. I'm telling you, they're going to talk to each other at some point. They have a death of their friend to contend with.
Yeah. Well, I think they can talk about it now.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was still a secret mission, though.
That's true. But they know what they know. And they'll probably, I would imagine they're going to go ahead and talk about it anyway. I mean, that would be my guess. I could be wrong about that, though. There are a few things I will say really quickly with Worf, and honestly, we're hitting point after point after point that I was going to hit in the recap, so we'll come back to all of this, I'm afraid.
Yeah, right.
For Worf to make everything a test for Cedo made sense to me. For Picard to do it did not. That just did not ring true at all. Now that you've said your whole thing about the flair for the dramatic, though, and not knowing who's behind the door before it opens, I just want to see David S. Pumpkins on an episode of Next Gen.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And then just be like, I don't know what that was. Not since Pat was on the
Right.
was on the Enterprise have I been as perplexed.
Right.
As what just happened.
Yeah. Well, okay, so you mentioned Worf, and you mentioned Cedo, and that raised a question to me the more I rewatched this episode. What exactly is Worf's interest in Ensign Cedo? And look, I'm not saying that it's inappropriate. I didn't get really a creepy vibe off of it. I'm just saying that I've never seen Worf that emotionally invested in, say, like, Alexander's well-being.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem is with an episode like this, you're building up relationships that don't actually exist, right? That Lavelle's always bothered me ever since, the beginning of this episode.
Right.
That's Riker. And, and I mean, the one thing and this goes back again to it's weird. You're right. It's especially weird how surface the relationship is between Beverly and Alyssa.
Yeah.
Because they have actually known each other for quite a while. And yet there's less in that relationship of these one-off characters, or with these one-off characters, than there is with anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. That's insane. Yeah. I'm getting more insulted by that now, the more we talk about it.
Well, okay, I like Jaxa standing up to Picard.
Yeah.
I mean, I like that I don't necessarily like the way they go about it, but I like that she learned something and she's like, okay, I need to sort of get myself together and take this on again. I hate that it felt like a test, because that just seems weird and inappropriate. But I like that she gets herself together to go stand up to him again. And it is a good question. Should she be judged, or should he be judging her for her past actions, or judging her for her performance now? It's the same person. It wasn't that long ago. We're talking about 3 years. And like you said, the unfair part of this is that, well, he knows Wesley. So right. Wesley just needs a good talking to, and we know that he'll be fine. So what is it a matter of the distance of time? Is it a matter of accomplishments in between? What are the things that we can use to then fairly rejudge that person?
Well, Picard actually did say that he thought that she should have been bounced, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He's not wrong. I don't know. I mean, I'm a believer in the idea of you giving people second chances, but they did do something that was expressly forbidden and did get a guy killed.
Yes.
And then covered that up.
Yes.
Somewhere along the way.
Pretty much as bad as it can get.
Almost, yeah. That's not to say she wouldn't have anything to offer ever again, but I would think at that point that she would be bounced out of the academy. So it's quite possible that he was speaking honestly. Well, no, except he said later that the reason that she's on the ship is because he brought her on the ship because he wanted to make sure that she had a fair shot.
Yeah.
I'll go back to what I said a minute ago. Well, I mean, they all should have been bounced. Wes should have been bounced. Paris, who wasn't really Paris, but Paris should have been bounced.
Right.
Cito shouldn't have been bounced. I mean, I'm going to go on a limb and say if you do something in school that gets one of your classmates killed,
yeah,
and then you lie about that,
yeah,
as you're going into the military wing of the Federation or any place, I'm thinking, yeah, if you do something at school that gets one of your classmates killed, probably expulsion would be the way to go.
Yeah, probably not going to get a cherry position on the flagship.
Probably not.
Of the Federation.
Except that Picard did take an interest. I mean, it's weird to me. Okay, so that's two then. So there's Wesley and there's Cito. I mean, again, Paris was the one. Locarno? Was it Locarno?
Yeah. Ooh, wow. Good. You're really good.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So Locarno was bad all the way through.
Yeah.
And so he loses his position because he was bad, and it showed no sign of redemption. I don't know. I mean, they seem to sort of decide at that point that everybody was going to get a second chance. Yeah. You, in these times in particular, you raise a very interesting question here, though. There's the idea of redemption is kind of an interesting one, right? It was Dennis Leary. On his album, No Cure for Cancer. Mm-hmm. He was like, I'm already planning my big coke-filled bender, where I crash a car and maybe kill a guy and then, I'll go away for 28 days and end up on the cover of People magazine. Sorry.
Right.
I mean, there's an interesting, it's weird to figure out who we're going to forgive in society and how we're going to forgive whoever we're going to forgive in society. Mm-hmm. And it's especially strange, though. You're right. It's especially strange in this episode. It's like, okay, you were training, lives are going to depend on what you do. Right. The peace of the galaxy may actually depend on what you do. So listen, don't get one of your coworkers killed again, okay? Right? And if you do, really don't cover it up because someday this might be important.
Yeah. Now, there is a smart thing that comes out of that. Worf says it takes courage to say the test is unfair. Mm-hmm. And I thought, isn't that what Kirk figured out about the Kobayashi Maru?
Well, but you know that about the Kobayashi Maru going in, don't you? You know it's a no-win scenario.
Well, see, I wondered how much of the Kobayashi Maru people are supposed to know before they actually go into it.
You think everybody's keeping that secret?
Well, as we see in Star Trek, secrets are kept to varying degrees of success.
Yeah.
So
that'd be awesome, though.
Yeah.
If you get all the way to you're serving on a starship now, and they're like, "Oh, time for your test." I'm like, "Oh, what is the test?" "Oh, nothing. It's
Yeah, right.
It's fine. We all aced it."
I do like some of the stuff between Riker and Lavelle. We know that Riker, we know him as a pretty well-rounded person, but Lavelle only sees the uniform and is intimidated by him, which it's a nice little way to illustrate that. Because we've seen Riker just kind of chilling at home with the deep V cut and watching women playing the lute.
Right.
So we know him in many ways, but it was nice to see somebody who doesn't know him that way and kind of be all thumbs in the process of trying to get to know him as a person. So there was something charming and realistic about that. Although interesting that Lavelle would say that he sleeps in his uniform. And I'm like, you know what? You're not that far off, because he's the guy who says that his work is his life. So there may be something to be said for that.
I will never forget the time Ben saved the Enterprise from total destruction. And the time Ben won Picard back from the gamblers of Octelion. Without Ben, I do not know what this show would be.
So a little bit earlier, John, I let people in on some of the behind the scenes that goes on in producing Mission Log. When I was talking about the added layers of sound effects that I bring in.
Yeah. Really
and
clever.
By the way, that car earlier, you're welcome. Yeah. I feel like letting people in a little bit more, though, behind the scenes.
Okay.
I was feeling a tiny bit like a jerk that I didn't have much to talk about in the third segment, the one where we really talk about, the sort of the deep, sort of meaty, sort of chewy stuff.
Yeah.
And other things that end in Y.
Yeah.
The Wednesday stuff about the show.
Yeah.
And then you had a lot more, and I thought, man, I just feel like a layabout. I feel like a loser. Like I didn't come up with it. I wasn't paying enough attention. You pretty much did the recap in segment 3, so I don't feel so bad about that anymore, because you're kind of going through and saying like, oh yeah, I like this about this. I like this about this, which is what I had planned to do in this segment, and what I plan to do still. I'm curious, though, having already done the summation, how you're going to pull it off. So, if you would please, Mr. Champion, because for people who don't know, and I would imagine there might be one, maybe, this is the part of the show where we do the messages, morals, and meanings of a given episode and try to figure out whether the whole thing holds up. Mm-hmm. So, in that vein, sir, your summation, your thoughts on Lower Decks, does this episode hold up as far as you're concerned?
All right, so I guess to start out with a little bit of an apology then. And funny enough, because, last week we did Sub Rosa, which is at the same time one of the most reviled episodes of Next Gen. And yet we hear from people who say, oh, this is my favorite. Mm-hmm. So, look, that's the way Star Trek is. And when you have anything that has that big of an audience, people are going to love an episode, people are going to hate an episode. And every episode will be somebody's favorite and somebody's least favorite. So I say that in preface to what I'm about to say about Lower Decks. I know this is a fan favorite, and I know this is a great idea. And maybe in 1994, I was far more excited about this episode. For me right now, though, this is an idea that's better on paper than it is in execution. So I love the idea of exploring life on the Enterprise with people other than the main crew. Like, say, some guys peeling potatoes.
What?
That might be a great episode.
That might be a great series.
It might be, right? Yeah, yeah. But the problem with the way this episode was done, I really never felt invested in any of these characters. Certainly not Ogawa, and we've seen more of her than anyone else out of these three. You know, although it was a little more dramatic introduction when we first met in Sensido, but we've seen less screen time of her than we have Ogawa. It all felt very superficial. And again, that Ogawa subplot is just terrible. It's painful. But here's the thing. Even though I don't love this episode as much as many other people do, I still think it holds up. And only because it adds a little something to life on the Enterprise. You know, the story is interesting. The idea you have this Cardassian spy, and then you have weaving around some other stuff with characters that are new and trying to figure out how things work on the Enterprise. That stuff works for me to an extent. I think the actors are fine. I wish we had more episodes with Ben, because that's just an interesting idea. To have a civilian who kind of weaves between the lower officers and the senior officers. I think that's a cool idea that should have been explored already.
Well, we did have more episodes with Ben. His name was Guinan.
Yeah, right.
I'm not kidding.
Right.
I mean, honestly, we'll come back to that in a second. But I mean, we did have that, and kind of a bummer that we don't hear. But I'm sorry.
Something that I really do like about this episode is keeping the storyline about the Cardassian hidden. From the moment Picard comes on, we know there's a mission, but we're only getting pieces of it, so it's nice to put the audience in the shoes of those lower crew members. That's a cool little bit of storytelling that isn't ever done on Star Trek. You know, you pretty much know what's going to happen from the outset. You pretty much know who's who and what the mission's going to be, even though that mission might throw you for some changes as you go along. But it's rare that you would just see the captain say, senior staff meeting now, we're going to this place, but then have no idea what any of that is about.
Right.
So there are many elements about this that I like. And like I said, the idea on paper is fine. I just wish this had been something else. So I think this is probably a first for me. I think this is not a really good episode. And I think there's a lot of junk that should have been cut out from this episode. But I'm actually going to say it holds up, because it's nice to see this change in Star Trek and just breaking the mold and being something different for once. So yeah, I can not love it, but still sort of appreciate it at the same time. Not going anywhere near the top of the list. This is not one that I would sit down and show to somebody who's new to Star Trek by any stretch.
Yeah.
But that's where I fall on this one. How about you?
I'm in a similar spot. I think I probably liked it a bit more than you did. I really love Riker's disdain for Lavelle, because Lavelle is just too much like Riker for Riker's taste. I mean, he's like Thomas Riker light. And there's a great moment, though, and it's cute. They didn't make a big deal of it. It's easy to miss, but in the last scene, when he's going to sit with his friends after they've lost Cedo, he pulls the Riker maneuver.
Oh, yes.
Which is great. Yes. And it's not a big deal, and he's not as showy about it as Riker is. Right. But I mean, to sort of illustrate their similarities, and for that to be the reason that that Riker can't stand Lavelle, I love that. I get that. I think I said earlier, Picard's test of Cedo rings hollow. Worf's test of Cedo is spot on. I mean, that is absolutely the kind of thing that he would do. And she took that test like a warrior. It was the result of a warrior, or however you would say that. We probably haven't hit this enough. I don't think of Ogawa as lower decks. I'm actually kind of bothered that I mean, it's almost insulting now to this character, to women, and to nurses, that she is like, however many seasons later, she's like, she's still starter. I don't think I ever knew what her rank was, nor did I ever care until we get to this episode. I don't understand why every conversation between Ogawa and Crusher throughout TNG fails the Bechdel test. all they talk about is men. I mean, if they're not talking about like somebody's burns or somebody's lacerations, if they're not talking about their work, which is, med tech to med tech, then they're like, so you seeing anybody? I mean, it's just, it's kind of awful. Yeah, I mean, it's great that they're not just talking about work, but then all they're talking about is boys. So I don't understand. Oh, and then also there was a weird thing in that scene where, like, Beverly asks Ogawa about the man she's dating and then keeps working.
Right.
And it's not until she hears there might be trouble that she's like, oh, well, sit down. And then they start talking. But it's like, why did you bring this up? If you're not even going to... I'm sorry, I can tell you're busy, so I'm not going to ask the question that you stopped me from doing my work to do. And the last thing I would say is Ben really should have been Guinan. I mean, the only other character we have like Guinan, I don't know why we don't have Whoopi Goldberg anymore. I don't know why we didn't have her in this episode. The only other character like Guinan that we've seen more than once is Mott, the barber. And that wouldn't have worked, right? Mm-hmm. But I mean, Guinan, I would believe Guinan, because we know that she talks to Will. We know that she talks to Deanna. We know that she talks to all these characters, and but they're not in 10 Forward all the time, and so we have to know that she talks to other people as well. For all of a sudden to be this character who's on a first name basis with Riker, who we've never seen before, and we're never going to see again. That was sort of I wish they had gotten Whoopi Goldberg back for this, which may sound crazy or whatever, but I mean that would have absolutely sold this episode for me, as opposed to having the Roy / Poochie character show up, who's he's been our friend the whole time and he's gone now. Can we talk about him? All that said, I really do like this episode, probably because of the upstairs downstairs feel. Because of its showing the two enterprises. The weakest part to me is I wish the bridge between them had actually been a bridge that we knew instead of this Ben character, whoever he is. None of that really gets in the messages, though. Were there messages as far as you're concerned, sir?
I mean, it's not a heavy message episode, but there are some things in the action that are interesting. Incensito has to face her challengers, and sort of redirect her tactics when she does that. So I think that's kind of a valuable lesson there. Also, workplace gossip will ruin things, or though it might actually help in some case. Maybe these three remaining after the death of Sito, maybe they actually need to talk things out. Maybe keeping all those secrets isn't actually going to help them. But there is something that I do like here, that's that the senior and junior officers start to see each other as people, not just ranks. And that is something of value from this episode. Like it's played in a funny way between Lavelle and Riker. It's played in a little more poignant way between Worf, Picard, and Sito. It's played in a totally disposable way with Beverly and Ogawa, because we've already seen that before. And it is played in the Geordi and Tarek. Yeah. It's played a little better in the Geordi and Tarek role, because they actually have some resolution toward the end, instead of just being this annoying guy, which, Tarek may still annoy Geordi, but kind of toward the end, Geordi is like, hey, we're going to work together.
Right.
So there's something nice to see in that. And then see Worf sort of... it's not his pride that he has to get over, but his hurt and maybe his discomfort a little bit, to actually go sit down with the rest of the junior officers and maybe hash out his feelings a little bit. So
that's gonna happen.
I do like seeing all that happen. Yeah. Well, Alexander's not around, so he can he can be as full of the feels as he wants to be.
I guess so. Yeah.
How about you? Anything else?
About the only other thing that I picked up, and it's for like 1 minute in Act 5, but there's a great Star Trek message, in all of this. Like, our enemy may be just as war weary as we are. I mean, it's not a thing. It's just like, that's actually an amazing scene to see, where that has not been part of it, right? Like the Cardassian's been a secret the whole time. I guess in Act 4, the Bajoran sees the Cardassian, and we've had a little bit of a taste of what that actually, how momentous that is on TNG. I can't remember the deep sea. There's another thing I hear that may actually explore this a tiny bit more. But I mean, still, even if you got no pre anything, they actually wrote it well enough that you can see these people don't like each other. You can see these people don't trust each other. They lay out for him. So listen, if this goes bad, you're going to be my prisoner. Right? Yeah. That's how we're going to sell this. So even if you don't have any of that, sort of history in your own database, your own mental database, I mean, they at least tell you enough right there. And then for these two people who we've been, told in Act 4 really should be lifelong enemies, to say this whole thing has been stupid and has to stop. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's kind of a neat message to see. Not an uncommon message for Star Trek, but a fantastic message to see, nonetheless. Hardly the point of the episode, but it's neat to find those little nuggets scattered about.
Mission Log is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. Executive producer Rod Roddenberry. Roddenberry is up to all kinds of things, including podcasts, multiple podcasts. You can check out more about our show, also Women at Warp and Priority One. Oh, and Mission Log Live at podcast.roddenberry.com. If you'd like to help support us directly, you can do that at patreon.com/missionlog. And for more exciting Star Trek podcasts, check out Trek FM, that's trek.fm. And for the latest in Star Trek news and discussion, be sure to visit trekmovie.com.
Next week, Thine Own Self.
Some of the music for Mission Log provided by Warp 11, online at warp11.com, and from the album Messages by Key Theory, free to download at kitheory.com. Listen, I just realized. Ben is a character from Star Trek in another timeline. I think this timeline was the one with Guinan. Or maybe the one with Barbot 9000. Anyway, forget about Ben. He was just a figment of your imagination, or something. End transmission.